The rain was coming down in sheets as I stared out the window of my small apartment in Seattle. I'm Osvaldo, 44, and until a few weeks ago I thought I had it all. A loving wife, a comfortable home, and a fulfilling career as a software developer. My life, however, was about to be shattered into a million pieces. It all started subtly. My wife, Elodie, began working late more frequently. She's a marketing manager, and initially I didn't think much of it. "Big campaign," she'd say, kissing me quickly before rushing out the door. I trusted her implicitly. We'd been together for 15 years, married for 10. Trust was the bedrock of our relationship, or so I thought. Then came the changes in her behavior. She became distant, less affectionate. Our conversations dwindled, and when we did talk, it felt forced, like she was going through the motions. I tried to broach the subject, but she'd brush it off, blaming stress from work. "You know how it is, Osvaldo," she'd say, her eyes flitting away from mine. One evening, Elodie had gone out for a networking event. I was home alone, tinkering with a side project, a mobile app I hoped to launch someday. Bored, I decided to make us some dinner, something special. I went to her laptop to look up a recipe she had sent me once. It was in her email. I opened the laptop and her email was already open. An email from someone named Cormac caught my eye. The subject line was "Tonight." Me heart pounded as I clicked on it. What I read next felt like a punch to the gut. It was a series of explicit messages, detailing a rendezvous they had planned for that evening. Cormac was clearly infatuated with her, and the tone of Elodie's replies, it was intimate, passionate, and utterly devastating. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the thread, each message a fresh wound. I closed the laptop, my mind reeling. I couldn't breathe. My wife, the woman I loved and trusted, was having an affair. With whom? I didn't know. All I knew was the name Cormac. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me, followed by an overwhelming sense of betrayal. How could she do this to me, to us? I spent the next few hours in a daze, pacing the apartment, trying to make sense of it all. When Elodie finally came home, around 11 p.m., she found me sitting in the dark, staring blankly ahead. "Osvaldo, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. I stood up, my voice trembling. "Who is Cormac?" I asked, the question hanging heavy in the air. Her face paled. "Cormac? I don't know anyone named Cormac," she stammered, her eyes darting around the room. "Don't lie to me, Elodie," I said, my voice rising. "I read your emails. I know about the affair." Tears welled up in her eyes, but I saw no genuine remorse, only fear. "Osvaldo, I can explain." "Explain what?" "Explain how you could betray me like this. Explain how you could lie to my face for weeks," I demanded, my voice cracking with emotion. She started to cry, a torrent of tears and half-hearted apologies. She confessed to the affair, claiming it was a mistake, a moment of weakness. She begged me to forgive her, promising it would never happen again, but the damage was done. The trust was broken, shattered beyond repair. I couldn't look at her without feeling a surge of anger and disgust. I told her to leave, to pack her things and get out of my life. She left that night, taking with her a suitcase full of clothes and a lifetime of memories. The apartment felt empty without her, but it was an emptiness filled with a strange sense of relief. The charade was over. The truth was out. The next few weeks were a blur. I threw myself into my work, using it as a distraction from the pain. I barely ate, barely slept. I lost weight, and my eyes were constantly bloodshot. My friends, Leif and Isidore, tried to support me, but there was only so much they could do. The pain was mine to bear. I decided I needed to know more about this Cormac. Who was he? What did he do? Why did Elodie choose him over me? I hired a private investigator, a woman named Serafina. She was discreet, professional, and thorough. Within a week, she had a file on Cormac. His full name was Cormac O'Connell, and he was a sales executive at Elodie's company. He was married with 2 young children. He had a reputation as a womanizer, a smooth talker who preyed on vulnerable women. As I read through the file, I felt a surge of anger, not just at Elodie but at Cormac as well. He was a predator and Elodie was his victim. But Serafina uncovered something else, something far more sinister. Cormac was involved in some shady dealings at the company. He was skimming money, taking kickbacks, and falsifying documents. Elodie was apparently aware of his activities, and she was helping him cover them up. That's when I realized the affair wasn't just about lust or boredom. It was about power, about money, about something far more dangerous. Elodie wasn't just cheating on me. She was involved in a criminal conspiracy. I decided I couldn't let this go. I couldn't let Cormac get away with his crimes, and I couldn't let Elodie off the hook either. I contacted the authorities and provided them with the information Serafina had gathered. They launched an investigation, and within weeks, Cormac was arrested on multiple charges, including fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Elodie was also implicated in the scheme. She was arrested as an accomplice facing serious jail time. When I saw her in court, she looked like a shell of her former self. The confident, ambitious woman I had married was gone, replaced by a scared, desperate figure. As I watched her being led away in handcuffs, I felt a pang of sadness, but it was quickly overshadowed by a sense of justice. They had both betrayed me, and they were both paying the price. The fallout from the scandal was immense. Elodie's company was in turmoil, and several other executives were implicated in Cormac's scheme. The company's stock plummeted, and its reputation was tarnished. I, on the other hand, became something of a local hero. The media portrayed me as the wronged husband who had exposed a corrupt corporate conspiracy. I received countless messages of support and encouragement, but none of it mattered. I was still heartbroken, still reeling from the betrayal. I decided I needed a change of scenery. I sold my apartment in Seattle and moved to a small town in Oregon, hoping to find some peace and quiet. I continued to work on my mobile app, pouring my energy into something positive. One day, a few months after the trial, I received a letter from Elodie. She was in prison serving a 5-year sentence. She apologized for her actions, admitting she had made a terrible mistake. She claimed she still loved me, but I knew those words were empty. I didn't reply to her letter. I had moved on. I had forgiven her, not for her sake, but for my own. I couldn't let her betrayal define my life. I had to find a way to heal, to rebuild, to move forward. It wasn't easy. There were days when the pain was overwhelming, when I felt like I would never be happy again. But I persevered. I surrounded myself with supportive friends. I pursued my passions, and I focused on the future. Years passed. I launched my mobile app, and it became a success. I found love again with a woman named Meredith who appreciated me for who I was. We built a life together, filled with love, trust, and mutual respect. Elodie was eventually released from prison. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she was struggling to rebuild her life. She had lost her job, her friends, and her reputation. She was living in poverty, working a minimum wage job. I never saw her again, but I often wondered about her. Did she ever regret her actions? Did she ever understand the pain she had caused? I didn't know, and I didn't care. I had moved on. I had found happiness again. My story is a cautionary tale about the destructive power of betrayal, but it's also a story about resilience, about forgiveness, and about the possibility of finding love and happiness after heartbreak. It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope for a brighter future.